All right, today we're diving into a really fascinating business case study. It's about how a telecom giant, Telenor, was basically forced by a perfect storm of global events to completely tear up its old playbook. This is a story about a massive strategic pivot from being a global empire builder to becoming a much more nimble, savvy portfolio manager.
So, at its heart, this is a story about a massive transformation. You see, Telenor used to be what you'd call an empire builder, planting its flag in new markets, seeking total control. But they had to shift to become an active owner, which is more like a smart investor managing a portfolio of powerful local players. It's a huge change, so let's break down exactly how and why it all went down.
First things first, to really get the scale of this change, you have to appreciate just how successful the old Telenor was. I mean, for decades, this company was a true global powerhouse, expanding its reach way, way beyond its home base in Norway.
And the scale? It was just immense. We're talking about a company that was serving 207 million mobile subscribers across the world. To put that in perspective, that's like serving the entire population of Brazil. It's a staggering number of people connected through one company's network.
And you know what comes with that kind of scale, right? Serious financial muscle. In 2024 alone, the group pulled in over $7.4 billion in revenue. So this wasn't some small player, this was an absolute dominant force in the global telecom industry.
So how'd they do it? Well, the strategy was pretty brilliant in its simplicity. They basically used the steady, reliable profits from their established Nordic markets as a kind of war chest. And with that money, they funded aggressive expansion into high-growth, but also high-risk Asian markets. They weren't just investing, they were building entire empires from scratch.
But then, the world changed. The whole geopolitical and economic landscape just shifted under their feet in the 2020s. And all of a sudden, that really successful strategy started to crack. And it presented Telenor with a series of what you could only call impossible choices.
You had this combination of intense geopolitical pressure and some really harsh economic headwinds that created a perfect storm. The old model, take big risks for high growth, it just wasn't sustainable anymore. And the very first domino to fall was in a country called Myanmar. The first major pivot they made wasn't driven by spreadsheets or market share. Nope, it was driven by a non-negotiable ethical red line they hit in Myanmar. See, after the 2021 military coup in Myanmar, Telenor got trapped. The company itself described the situation as facing an impossible dilemma, basically a choice where there was no good outcome. And here's the core of the problem, right? The new military junta demanded that Telenor install surveillance technology. Doing that would directly violate European human rights laws, so if they complied, they'd be breaking the law back home. But if they refused, they would put their local employees in grave danger. There was just no way to win.
So they had to make a choice. And they walked away. But this decision came at a staggering cost. Telenor took a financial hit of roughly $780 million to get out of the country and stick to its values. That is a massive price to pay for doing what they believed was the right thing.
Okay, so the crisis in Myanmar was the first huge step. The next phase of their big transformation was something the company called a structural retreat in Southeast Asia. Now, this wasn't about giving up, it was really about getting smarter. Their new strategy was crystal clear. Instead of fighting these expensive wars to be the number 2 or number 3 player in markets like Thailand and Malaysia, they decided to join forces. They merged their local businesses with rivals to create new, undisputed market leaders, and they kept a big ownership stake without all the headaches of full operational control. And did it work? Oh yeah, absolutely. Just take a look at Malaysia. The new company, Telecom Digi, now completely dominates the market with around 20 million subscribers, leaving its competitors way, way behind. So by giving up that sole control, Telenor got a huge piece of a much stronger, more profitable company. Smart, right? All right, the final piece of this whole strategic puzzle was figuring out what to do with another massive but increasingly difficult operation, Pakistan. This move was all about cutting loose a volatile asset that was starting to drag the whole group down. So here was the deal. Despite having a huge number of subscribers, the business in Pakistan was really struggling. The country's currency was in freefall, energy costs were shooting through the roof, and the average amount of money they could make from each customer was one of the lowest in the world. It had become a financial anchor.
So they made the tough call.
Telenor sold its Pakistan unit to a local company, PTCL, for about $400 million. This move officially ended their hands-on presence there and freed up a lot of capital and focus to use elsewhere.
So if we put it all together, Telenor's new playbook becomes really clear. It was 3 decisive moves. First, an ethics-first exit from Myanmar. Second, smart mergers in Southeast Asia to create market leaders. And third, a focused sale of the Pakistan operation to get rid of volatility. I mean, this is the anatomy of their transformation right here.
And all of this brings us to the new Telenor. They've basically traded flags on a map for financial resilience and strategic influence. And now, this is where you come in. Let's really analyze the outcome and think about what it means for the future.
So this all leads to that new active owner model. Telenor no longer runs the day-to-day operations in these big Asian markets. Instead, they hold a powerful seat at the table, where they can influence strategy and, of course, share in the profits of these market-leading companies.
But, and this is a huge but, for any global company, it raises a critical question. Is this model actually sustainable in the long run? Or, by giving up that full control, do you leave yourself vulnerable to the goals and agendas of your local partners, which, might not always line up with your own? It's a real strategic trade-off.
And that leads us to our final thought for you. Imagine you're on the board at Telenor. What's the next move? Do you take all this capital they freed up and double down on their stable, high-tech Nordic home base? Or do you dust off that old empire builder playbook and start scouting for the next big growth opportunity in a new frontier, maybe somewhere like Africa? There's no easy answer, and it really gets you thinking about the future of global business strategy.